Ludwig van Beethoven was born in December of 1770 in Bonn, Germany. He grew up in an unhealthy environment. His father was an alcoholic and his mother was unhappy in their marriage. Most of his musical inspiration and encouragement came from his grandfather, Johann Keverich, and his teacher, Christian Gottlob Neef. Beethoven started taking piano lessons at the age of 12 and then began to compose his own musical ideas. He started getting paid for his gigs and compositions, and this money helped his family and provided them with the things that they needed. To advance his studies, he made plans to move to Vienna to take instruction from some of the leading teachers of this time. However, these plans were canceled when his mother fell ill at a young age. This prolonged his musical studies because he stayed in Bonn until her death. While remaining in Bonn, he was selected by the government to write a cantata commemorating the death of Joseph II, the popular Habsburg emperor. Cantata on the Death of Joseph II was the result. This work, composed in 1790, was never publicly performed in Beethoven's lifetime, however, was a turning point in Beethoven's life and shows way to his blossoming genius. With its simple yet beautiful melody, this music initially rises, then falls back into itself at the end, recapitulating the original melody. It was a technique Beethoven would use to great acclaim for the rest of his composing career. As early as 1801, Beethoven began writing to his friends about his difficulty in hearing and the issues it presented him with in his social and professional life. The cause of his deafness is unknown, but has variously been attributed to typhus, autoimmune disorders, and even his habit of immersing his head in cold water to stay awake.
Because of his deafness, he fell into depression, leading him to have suicidal thoughts. In light of this, after seeking the needed help, his musical works became more emotionally driven. His orchestral works include powerful, strong chords and reach several climaxes. Beethoven specifically includes strong climaxes to ensure that he could still enjoy the music that his listeners enjoy through vibrations. At the age of 39, Beethoven premiered the Egmont Overture on June 15, 1810. During the late 1700s, early 1800s, Beethoven was asked to compose for a play by one of his favorite playwrights, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. When Beethoven was commissioned to work on this project, he was able to include how he felt about the society during the time and incorporated his personal feelings into the work. During this time, the Napoleonic Wars were taking place. Beethoven had very radical political views and was a supporter of the Enlightenment political and social philosophy and despised class divisions. Beethoven expressed his ill feelings towards Napoleon over the invasions of Vienna in both 1804 and 1809. This caused many to flee, and Beethoven had to make the decision whether to remain in Vienna or go elsewhere. He decided to stay in Vienna. This caused him to become distressed and dismal. In the Egmont Overture, Beethoven expressed his political concerns through the offering of an individual summoned to death for taking a stand against domination.
The Egmont Overture isn't directly a reflection of the history and political climate of Vienna at the time. This piece is incidental, meaning that it serves to provide background to a film or play, and in this case, it is the latter. Beethoven was commissioned to write, essentially, background music for a play, Goethe's Egmont. It is a play said to be influenced by Shakespearean tragedies, telling the heroic story and downfall of Count Egmont, a Dutchman who fought for liberation of Protestant Norway when under the rule of Roman Catholic Spain. It is believed that Beethoven commissioned this work partly because of his radical beliefs toward the political climate of Vienna at the time, where Napoleon had just recently invaded twice. There is a parallel to be drawn between the Duke of Alba, who spearheaded the invasion of Norway, and Napoleon, who was doing something of the same in Vienna, only centuries later. Throughout the play, Count Egmont stands for his beliefs in freedom and is arrested by the Spanish, and neither any of the townspeople nor his mistress, Clerchen, save him before he is sentenced to death and executed. Later, his mistress commits suicide out of guilt. Beethoven's Egmont Overture is the first experience the audience has before any of the play begins, and it summarizes the events of the play in the most fitting way.
This piece is written in sonata form. Beethoven chose this form specifically because it tells a story from the exposition to the development and finally the recapitulation to the closing. The purpose of an overture is to musically summarize what the audience will then experience throughout the play, and the story-like feeling of the sonata form captures this well. During the exposition of the piece, the strings answer the winds and brass multiple times. This symbolizes the Spanish judges prosecuting Count Egmont and the family of Count Egmont pleading for his innocence in the court. It is likely Beethoven chose the different instrument families to convey the sense of arguing because they produce a different sound, each strong in their own ways. The strings and winds and brass answer each other and crescendo throughout their discussion. The overture opens with the entire orchestra on an accented forte F. The intense depth of this unison note throughout the entire orchestra symbolizes the sentence of death for Count Egmont. Throughout the piece and towards the end, there is a long, massive crescendo which signifies Count Egmont's spirit and that he will live on. The piece ends with 3 major chords played successively. This demonstrates the legacy Count Egmont has left with a sense of pride. Egmont Opus 84 consists of the well-known overture that is followed by 9 pieces of incidental music. With reference to style, there are tempo changes throughout the overture. For example, the piece starts sostenido ma non troppo and continues to an allegro section until the end of the piece. There are several strong melodic cadences that contain a balance of phrase units. The melody is mostly scalar and the harmony is also modal. Furthermore, this piece contains a polyphonic texture which demonstrates a thicker texture through several melodic voices.
The Egmont Overture was written over 2 centuries ago, but is still talked about and performed today because besides the more specific genius musical decisions, the use of the sonata form and genre is so fitting to the piece's purpose, to create as descriptive of a world on stage as possible. The collaboration between Beethoven and Goethe created a brilliant multimodal work that will continue to move audiences for decades to come.